wondered if you had any thoughts on the similarities and differences between how we experience and heal from individual trauma and how societies experience and heal from collective trauma.
Wow, Mike, thank you. I'm glad you like the book, which I'm hugely flattered, because Mike D.D. Johnston, you can look him up, is an amazing novelist. So it's a huge compliment. And one of his books, The Deconstruction of Professor Thrub, go and buy it. It's one of my favorite novels. And so I could ask you the same question, Mike, because you look at this yourself. And I think, so there's two parts to that question. One, the interweaving of the personal trauma and the collective trauma. I think that's partly done through language. So in the language that I'm using, I'm very aware of echoing, in this particular example, Spain and the Spanish Civil War and the language of torture. And then I picked particular references that are really quite specific. So, for example, the exchange of sugar, which had become a luxury commodity and that was exchanged for sex between the soldiers would pay in sugar for women to have sex with them. And so I have a repetitive allusion to sugar, and Miguel is quite often adding sugar. He's obsessed with sugar. He's adding it to everything. And the baking of the cakes and this obsession with sugar. So there's this echoing of the Spanish Civil War through this very specific black market product that was used as a weapon of degradation in the novel. So that's one example. And there's a number of them whereby I'm creating layering in that specific way. The healing from any form of trauma, I think, is a tough one. I think that creativity and writing about it and breaking the silence is part of it. So with this novel, although it's fiction and I could have easily hidden behind it, I decided in the dedication to dedicate this book to abused children and the adults that we become. And that we was a big decision for me, because on the one hand, I wanted to stay hidden behind being a fiction writer, and it's most certainly fiction. It's a long way from my story. But at the same time, I wanted to break the silence of childhood abuse, because I think that's one of the things that perpetuates it, the shame and the pain that is keeping people in silence. So I made the decision to break the silence, and I think that was actually quite healing for me on a personal level. To write this book was quite healing. To sit here now is healing. I wonder why I chose the letter of forgiveness. I think that was also healing, to read that in front of an audience. And I think that by writing the book, I've also broken the silence of something that still hangs over Spain, which is the pact of forgetting. I've maybe contributed in some tiny indirect way to the trauma that the silencing and for people who don't know, the pact of forgetting is the name of the amnesty law, one of the laws that meant that none of the crimes against humanity could be brought to justice that were committed under General Franco and during the Spanish Civil War. So, there's still a lot of trauma around that. And I think that's a journey that Spain has to go on. So I'd like to think that in some small way, this novel has moved a tiny step forward in breaking that silence.